So I again, because I'm informational, I take a different approach than most people. I don't use KGR that often. I believe in the KGR. I think it works. I've used it in some instances, but for the most part, what I do is I focus on like questions is really big. I'm really big on questions. So when people are asking questions, I want to have an answer. And I also make sure now, and this is something that I've developed with time, instead of just seeing a keyword that's a question and answering that question directly, I also will look in my list. I have a master list of different like keyword ideas that I have. I'll look in that whole list for keywords that are common and kind of lump it all up into one blog post. So instead of just answering one thing, I'll answer 3 or 4 questions in one, or at least make sure that I'm hitting the content as needed. So as an example, I'm just going to give an example of something on my desk. I have a battery charger from Canon. So this is going to be a generic, terrible example, but I'm going to give it anyway. So the one question might is, what is the Canon battery charger and who is the creator of the Canon battery charger? So I would make sure to lump both of those into one post because it makes sense that they're so close, in relevancy to do that. So yeah, so I did a lot of that. I've done a lot of that keyword research. Usually what I'll do at this point, I still use Longtail Pro. So that is an OG tool. I don't know how many people are using it now. I use usually Longtail Pro. I'll also use Ahrefs to pull keywords. And I do that because both of those platforms give a competitive score. And I like to have a competitive score from 2 different sources because I've really found over time that sometimes Ahrefs is way off, sometimes Longtail Pro is way off, and it's nice to have the 2 to compare, to see not just because even their search volumes aren't the same, which seems like, and if you compare that to Google, that wouldn't be the same. It seems crazy, but that's how it is. They're all estimations. So I usually use those 2, and I also like to use keyword. Well, they changed the name, I think, probably for good reason, but it was Keyword Shitter. And now I think it's keyword sheeter. So that's it. They changed it to that. But when I do that keyword research, I'll usually do who, what, when, where, why, how. So I'll say like, again, with the Canon battery charger, I'll just put like who, Canon battery charger. And I'll press shit keywords on the old, I don't know, whatever the people find on this, but I'll put shit keywords and then I'll just generate a list of different keywords for me, and then I'll do who, then what, then when, then where. So generic example, but hopefully it gets the point across.
That's funny. I never used the tool, but I know a lot of people talked about it, and it seems fine. And yeah. I don't have an issue with the swearing or anything like that, but it's funny. They were like, all right, a lot of people talk about it, and then I say stick to your guns. Just like
honestly, I think it's a great name. Like, it's kind of hilarious. Everybody gets a little chuckle when they hear it. But they probably, if they want to go mainstream, I guess, and be featured in all the different podcasts and stuff, they probably, assumed it was a good idea to do that. So, but yeah, so I'll do that. And then what I'll also do is I'll take some of the keywords that the keyword shitter pushes out, and I will actually throw that into Longtail Pro, and I'll throw that into Ahrefs, because the thing is, they don't give any search volume with that. So honestly, like when I start a website, I have a Google Sheet with like somewhere between 5,000 to 10,000 keywords. Not all those keywords are winners. So I'll basically throw them all into one spreadsheet, and then I use filters to segment down and find the content that's relevant to each other. And then I'll create like one spreadsheet for my writer to go into. And it'll say, here's keyword 1, here's the subtopic, here's another subtopic. And then people can, they can write from there. So I kind of give them the outline, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. And I always encourage them, if there's something that you think's missing, let me know. So yeah, that's how I usually do it, and that's worked out pretty well.
It sounds like you do most of the keyword research, brainstorming, and curation yourself, right?
1,000%. I think, and like, yeah, you could outsource keyword research and all that, but to me, that's such a vital component in creating just not only what content is going out there, but the overall direction of the website. If you outsource it, someone's not going to care as much as you are ever about this stuff, and I think the keyword research and finding those opportunities and also finding the niche are probably the most important parts of creating any website. So that's one part I'm not willing to let go of when it comes to outsourcing, because I think it's too important. And also, I can sit there and spend a couple, 2-3 hours, go through the keywords, use that sheet, pull everything. And then, every couple weeks, my writers will comment and say, hey, we're running out of keywords, and I say, okay. And then I'll go in there for an hour and just give them 10 more articles to write or something like that, and kind of figure it out for them. So yeah, I won't outsource that ever. There's no way I'm going to do that.
Okay. And that totally makes sense because you start with a huge list, you know, many thousand keywords, you prune it down, and then that's all you need for like a really long time. Your writers take time to do the writing, and there's many other activities. So it's really not a huge time suck. And I bet you kind of like finding the keywords, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of good one there, and then I mean, it's kind of exciting, right? Like when you're doing it, you're like, oh my gosh, I could do this, this, this. The other thing I do want to mention that I forgot to mention is that with my keyword research, I'm always looking also at my competitors that are way farther ahead than me and looking at what they've built out and what they've done. And in this particular instance, there's a competitor that has. I talk about like databases, which isn't really the correct term. It's almost like directories, where it's a page that talks about a specific location. The example that I'll give, let's just say pet stores, right? So maybe you want to talk about every pet store in the US or something like that. You would then create a page on your website specific to every single pet store in the US, and you use those listings to get ranked for, their own names, their own terms, that sort of thing. Those are good because, especially with Google AdSense, there is usually a lot of ads and display ads for that, because if not that brand bidding on it, it's also the competitor bidding on it. So those actually work really well. Plus, you usually will get like geographic-centric traffic, which is nice, because if someone's searching for like a pet store near them, you search, then you'll come up in there, and then they'll see your website's much more than that. So I'm a big fan of that. I didn't even realize with this niche that someone could kind of do that, saw what a competitor was doing, and I was like, that's like kind of the premise of the whole website. Like that's a big part of this website. So it's worked really, really well. Actually, the blog posts are the ones that are getting the most, which are usually question focused. They're really getting like majority of the traffic, but every one of those quote unquote directory or type pages, those are all getting a lot of traffic, and combined, not one individually, but combined, they're making a lot too. So
Gotcha.